So last week, we all witnessed insufferable levels of political grandstanding and virtue signaling when the Democratic Party establishment announced that they'd be suing WikiLeaks, Russia, and the Trump campaign because, according to DNC Chairman Tom Perez,
preserving our democracy is priceless. And when you have elections that have been attempted, you've seen attempted interference in the past, they're going to do it again. That's what we believe in as Democrats. Elections should be fair.
Elections should be fair. Now, just days after the Democratic Party proclaimed just how much they care about the fairness of elections, The Intercept's Li Fang published a video containing a covertly recorded audio conversation between Steny Hoyer, the second highest-ranking Democrat, and progressive candidate Levi-Tillemann, who's running to represent the 6th Congressional District of Colorado. And in this audio, you'll hear Steny Hoyer not so subtly suggesting that the Democratic Party establishment is not only stacking the deck against Tillemann, but that he would prefer that Tillemann just dropped out altogether. So listen to this and tell me if it sounds like Democrats really believe that elections should be fair.
In his farewell address, President Obama told Americans that if they were fed up, they should go out and run for office.
If you're disappointed by your elected officials, grab a clipboard, get some signatures, and run for office yourself.
And in the Trump era, thousands of Democrats have heeded his call, running for office in elections across the country. Meanwhile, in the race for Congress, the DCCC, or the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, has moved aggressively to crush competitive primaries. DCCC officials and senior Democrats are hand-picking moderate, business-friendly candidates and are attempting to push progressives out of key races. In Colorado's 6th District, one of the most competitive seats in the country, the DCCC moved in early to select Jason Crow, a corporate lawyer, as the party candidate, pushing resources, endorsements, and money to Crow while elbowing out progressive Democratic competitors. The Democratic Party often denies that they play favorites. What follows is a meeting between Congressman Steny Hoyer, the number 2 Democrat in the House, and Levi-Tillemann, a progressive running for the nomination for the Colorado seat.
Levi, I want to talk to you about this congressional race.
Absolutely, that's what I expected.
Yeah.
You would like me to get out of the race.
And you keep saying, I would like you to get out. And of course, that's correct.
Yeah. I know you're fundraising for Crow.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm for Crow. I am for Crow because a judgment was made very early on. I didn't participate in the decision.
So your position is a decision was made, very early on before voters had to say, that's fine because that's the DCCC knows better than the voters of the 6th Congressional District, and we should line up behind that candidate.
That's certainly the consequence of our decision. There are 2 things I'd like you to consider. One may be easier than the other. The first would be if you stay in the race.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I would hope you would not. I'll get to that. But if you stay in the race, it is not useful to the objective to tear down Crow.
Mm-hmm.
Crow's clearly the favorite. That doesn't mean he'll win. It just means he's the favorite.
I hear you.
That doesn't mean it's right. It just means
No, I hear you.
right. I don't know Crow well, but I think he's a decent human being.
So before we go any further on that, Crow is the favorite. In no small part, Congressman Hoyer, because the DCCC not only put its finger on the scale, but started jumping on the scale very early on. And I'm born and raised a Democrat. I mean, it's undemocratic to have a small elite select someone and then try to rig the primary against the other people running. And that is basically what's been happening.
I hear you, and I disagree.
But you were part of that process
Absolutely.
as well. You said
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
I've been at this a long time.
Yeah.
When I said you need to get in strong, hard, and early, you disagree with me. Obviously, that's your choice.
And you guys are shoveling money at him.
I'm going to continue.
You're going to continue to do it?
We are going to continue to do it. And the reason, Levi, we're going to do it is because a decision was made to focus. It was clear that was our policy and our hope that we could early on try to come to an agreement on a candidate that we thought could win the general, and to give that candidate all the help we could give them so that we would have a unified effort going into a general election.
Which means, effectively, Congressman Hoyer, I'm running a campaign against Crow and against you and against the DCCC because you guys are on Crow's side.
Yeah. You know, frankly, that happens in life all the time.
Frankly, that happens in life all the time. That was the second highest ranking Democrat admitting that they frequently stack the deck against progressives. Now, this isn't very surprising to people who have been paying attention, but it certainly is interesting to see them just outright admit it. You'd think that they would maybe more subtly suggest or maybe, hint that progressives should get out of the race, but here he is saying, no, I want you to drop out, and yes, we are stacking the deck against you. So if I were Levi Tillemann in his position, and since they just openly admitted that they're not going to play fair, that they want to play dirty, here's what I would do. I'd say, look, since you guys want to play dirty, now I'm going to play dirty. So since I have to run against the DCCC, Jason Crow, and the aggregate Democratic Party establishment, here's what I'm going to make Jason Crow do. If he wins the nomination, I'm not going to get out of the race. I'm going to stay in now, run as an independent, and make him not only run against a Republican, but run against me as well. So if you guys want to play dirty, I'm going to play dirty as well and make sure that we definitely split the liberal vote. Because if I'm not going to get a fair shake, then neither is Jason Crow. That's what should happen anytime there's evidence that the Democratic Party establishment is stacking the deck against progressive candidates. If they cut off your access to NGP Van, you should threaten to run as an independent. If they come out and endorse your opponent in a primary and provide that individual with funding, you should threaten to run as an independent, and you should follow through. Because if they know that we're just going to roll over and take it and there's not going to be any consequences for their actions, then guess what? They're going to do it again. Now, getting back to Steny Hoyer, what should be the proper response from the Democratic Party? Well, first and foremost, leaders within the Democratic Party like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi should call on him to resign, because clearly this shows that they hold progressive candidates in contempt. They don't like them. They don't want them running. They think that they shouldn't even compete. However, is that the response that we got from members of the Democratic Party? Well, no, because after Steny Hoyer admitted that they are actively rigging primaries across the country against progressives, Democrats in leadership positions like Nancy Pelosi responded by defending Steny Hoyer, literally. So what is it that Nancy Pelosi said? Quote, I don't see anything inappropriate in what Mr. Hoyer was engaged in conversation about, Pelosi told reporters at her weekly news conference. If the realities of life is that some candidates can do better in the general than others, then that's a clear-eyed conversation that we should be having. Wait a second. You guys didn't want to have this conversation in 2016 when Bernie Sanders was polling better than Hillary Clinton in hypothetical matchups against Donald Trump. We pointed this out, and you guys told us to be quiet and stop pointing out all of Hillary Clinton's obvious flaws. So now all of a sudden, electability is at the top of your minds when you didn't seem to care about electability back in 2016? Really? Now, what's funny is that Nancy Pelosi is doing what Democrats did last time when they were caught rigging elections. They're choosing to shoot the messenger rather than address the actual substance of what was revealed. She states, quote, I don't know that a person can tape a person without the person's consent and then release it to the press. That's what I'm more concerned about. But Colorado law doesn't require both parties to consent to a recording. So she's more concerned that Steny Hoyer was busted than she was with what Steny Hoyer was actually doing here to tank the campaign of a progressive. And of course she doesn't care because she's doing the same thing. She's the leader of the Democratic Party. So of course this is what she's doing. If she wanted to stop it, she could. But she's choosing not to do that because Nancy Pelosi is not a progressive. She is an obstacle to progress. And so long as her and other leaders in the Democratic Party refuse to step down and allow a new generation who is progressive to take over, this will continue to happen. Now, in the same week, a new Reuters Ipsos poll found out that Democrats actually are continuing to lose support among millennials. Their support overall is down by 9 points since 2016. 9 points. Now, before you go blaming us, look in the mirror, because this is the exact type of shit that drives millennials out of the party. Because look, I'm someone who, as soon as I was old enough to vote, I registered as a Democrat. But I now am a millennial that registered as an independent who loathes the Democratic Party. And it's because of things like this. You refuse to give progressives a fair shake. They're not admitting that they rigged the primaries, blatantly so, against Bernie Sanders in 2016, and as they still do it, they claim that they care so much about democracy, which is why they just have to sue WikiLeaks and Russia and the Trump campaign. They don't care about democracy. Democrats are undemocratic. They should be named the Undemocratic Party because they don't give a damn about democracy. They only care about getting their corporate stooges into power so that way they can continue to do the bidding of their corporate donors. They don't like that progressives across the country are choosing to stand up and run and challenge their power. They don't like that. But you know what? We're going to do it anyway. We know it's going to be difficult, and trying to crack into the status quo and change the status quo is a very difficult task, but that's not going to stop us from doing it. This audio that was leaked, it's not too surprising. It's not going to demoralize us. It's not going to stop progressives from running across the country. I just wish that progressives would be more direct in confronting Democrats when they do this. Threaten to run as an independent. They won't like that. And maybe if you threaten to run as an independent, maybe then they'll actually push for ranked choice voting if they truly care about vote spoiling. But really, they don't care about it. They hate the idea of ranked choice voting because then they couldn't use this voter shaming strategy to coerce you to vote for Democrats every election, no matter how much they betray you, no matter how little they represent you. This party is fundamentally broken. This is never going to stop unless progressives actually play dirty themselves and threaten to run as an independent and threaten to split votes in that race. It's never going to stop. You have to fight fire with fire, and that's how you do it.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.